Did a follow-up this week. Reported to the Department of Education with the on-campus building. Actually took several of them are still
Yeah, yes.
Hi.
Hello, Tim. How are you?
Better than some, not as good as others.
I've heard that answer once or twice. You know, I think it was mostly today, too. I went into room 1 this afternoon and tried to turn that projector on manually, took a ladder, went up to the projector, and it was just making a sparking noise, like something was just sparking on the inside of it. I've never heard anything like that before.
That's not good.
I wouldn't do it from the controller, so I had to go up there and disconnect the controller and try and do it manually, try and just turn it on manually. Yeah, that wasn't good at all, so I know that's absolutely dead.
The projector itself?
Yeah. Big change the bulb will fix it.
Well, if the bulb includes the entire mechanism.
Yeah, that's what it is. But any other projector, we're going to have to move the mount forward, just like we did in the lecture hall. It's going to be a little tough in that room. So try to get the schedule and see what I can get when we get in there this week, so we can get that done.
Okay. Yeah, and that is.
For some reason,
yeah, we use that room a lot.
Yeah, it needs to be hard with it on the floor there.
That's one of the. That's not a new LED.
That's a new LED though, yes. Very nice, very bright. It did have to move farther back. Love to extend that out. Janet just hit me about sending that thing back to the other side of the room. The workstation. Or John wanted it moved. We can't move it back here because then the wireless mouse doesn't work for Janet. So the only other alternative is over there where that ugly coating is. They want to get rid of it anyway.
Oh, they do want to get rid of that?
They do want to get rid of that.
So if we just replace that with that, we're good?
Yeah, we just mount the microphone right on this workstation right there for a board meeting. And it'll be easy to do. We just extend the wires around that curve underneath there, and it'll be pretty simple to do.
That's a lot of wires.
A little bit.
yeah.
But that's better than the alternative. The alternative is taking all this wire off the ceiling up here, routing it the other way, and have it come down the middle of that wall. So here we're only extending 12 feet, 10 or 12 feet. Stuff like that. And then we cure all, I guess. And we make it so it still moves out to the middle of the room for the instructors for classes. Janet says this is a boardroom.
Is this a? Is there a limitation on the length of that cable?
No. No. Add another 12 feet to it and burn it. One bit.
Okay, since I don't have to get out.
Oh, you got us anyway. What a gentleman, huh? A nice gentleman.
I called you today, but you weren't there. I figured it out.
Oh, you figured it out? Oh, that's always good.
It's all right.
Scoot around the other side of Tony here. Let me see. That's all right. Stay right there. Don't move. Don't trip.
Firewire cables always dangerous.
There we
We have
go.
our own units, and then we have to tie it into districts.
Right, there's two things. There's signing into the district, and there is how do you review your own.
Oh, how do we do it?
Right.
Oh.
And I'm doing the same thing. Oh, we do it every program. And whenever it's
Changes in the changes for us or anything like that.
Hello, John. How are you?
Hello, good, thanks.
Good. Francis, how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Basically, they're saying
Fantastic.
it's a program review for yourself. Once I had that in my mind,
It'll be a short agenda, so I got to watch it.
They've been taking it out of their
How are you? Hello. But it goes over to the. You just gotta catch it.
Oh, very right.
You just gotta catch it when it goes over the break.
That's why you wear it. It's drafty.
I'm sorry to hear about the vacation. That's all.
Oh, you know what? You gotta make lemonade out of it.
Right. Like
You know, it's still
Gee, don't sit here.
I know.
You're too loud.
I know.
Good for you.
Just had to get up on the skis. Run out the door.
Oh, I did everything. Oh, man, yeah. It's crazy. Installing 17 workstations. It's hilarious.
My layers stuff is almost too bad. Just, I can't stand that.
That's a big easy button.
When they printed it. How are you?
I'll remember that.
Happy New Year.
He went to a hooky lounge.
You're on tape, Steve.
Still waiting on that one.
Hopefully not yet.
Yeah? Don't know when that gavel's gonna hit.
Okay.
The board will reconvene back into open session. Looks like maybe a little before 5 or right at 5. During the previous closed session, the board tabled the item consideration of the student expulsion. Welcome back, everybody, and Daniel, can you lead us in the student pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, it looks like in anticipation of the first day of school, whether it was Jan or Janet or somebody kept the agenda pretty short because you guys all felt tired from getting ready and just acting out what had to happen today. We're going to start out by taking a few minutes to recognize Greg as our previous board president. And Greg, I want to thank you personally. I know I did at the last meeting for your years of service, not just as president, but on this board in general. And I heard from various people in Visalia that said you were a valuable asset to the college. So I hope you continue all that work you did, even though you're not president.
I'm looking forward
You're
to not being the
available
president.
on that. Do any of my other board members, would they like to make any comments regarding Greg? I know you do, so we'll start with you, John.
What makes you think I'll say that? I like it. I just, we chased an improvement.
No, to be serious for a moment, particularly this last year, I've watched you and took to heart some of your style. I noticed how you are quite good at advancing the agenda without being an abrasive person. Talent I wish that I had more of, and I appreciate your style. And I thank you for the work the way the board moved ahead this last year. And I'm not so sure it wouldn't have if you weren't there. Thank you.
Well, Greg, you did a great job, but I think it's so nice to have a board president with hair.
Quite too much here this
Greg, the only thing that I heard from your friends was I think they were kind of happy that you were probably going to have more time to get out on the golf course because I think they're anxious to get some of their money back. So I think that's about it.
Well, and I'd like to thank you too for all the time you spent in our hiring process, not only with Dr. Scroggins, but also with Stan. And I think, especially as a board member, I knew that you took that to heart and took a lot more time than I know I did in terms of some of the background work. So I really appreciate that as well.
And I also would like to say that because you were serving in the role as president during the year that the search for the new permanent superintendent president took place, and as a candidate in that process, I got the opportunity to see how much time and effort you put in. There's always kind of I think, a special bond between the board president and the new superintendent president when they come in, because that time ends up being spent together. So I wanted to thank you very much for making my transition here a smooth one, and how professionally you handled that process. And I also heard tell that historically, while this board has representatives from all over our district, including multiple cities, that it hadn't been tradition for the Visalia area representative or representatives to serve in the role as president. So doing that and doing it effectively, I'm sure made all of your constituents proud and feel good. And so as a token of our appreciation, the commemorative plaque with the gavel on it is presented to you tonight in appreciation for your service as president, and in your service as a board member, and in your service as a COS leader in our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Actually, I served the 3 years as president. I served with 3 different president superintendents. Thank you. That was very nice.
You could shift gears, Greg. That was a good trait of yours, that's for sure. Thanks again, Greg. Do we have any public comments concerning items on the agenda? Any public comments concerning items not on the agenda? Come on, if you could state your name for the record, please.
Good evening, my name is Adriana Gonzalez, and I was not able to attend the last board meeting, but I'm here to talk about a topic that is very close to my heart and in support of something that I strongly believe in, and so I've written a letter that I'd like to address. Board meeting. Dear COS President, Mr. Stan Sosa, and Board of Trustees, I am a citizen of this great community and proud graduate of College of the Sequoias, where I began my post-secondary educational journey prior to transferring to California State University Fresno. I want to believe wholeheartedly that the COS district feels that, I'm quoting, community input and involvement is essential in maintaining and creating the programs that give students the skills they need to be successful in obtaining employment or transferring on to further their education, end quote, as shared by a board member that serves this educational institution. I do believe that you have the ability to, I'm quoting again, change people's lives and make them productive citizens of a democracy, as shared by another. I also understand that the weight of the economic recession has had a cumulative impact on all public education sectors that have led to some very difficult decisions, no doubt. As a community member, I value your service and believe that you are working hard to make the best possible decisions to protect this district and its solvency, which is why a recent decision to cut the WINTHIT program by 50% came as a great shock. Why cut a program that has proven to be successful based on actual results? Furthermore, one that is highly supported by an overwhelming amount of members from this community. Many of us from the COS district service have dedicated countless hours of personal time and commitment, in addition to financial or in-kind contributions at various levels in support of the Puente program and its services. The students from our community and surrounding areas are the true benefactors of this program, and they will be the ones who suffer the greatest loss. I have written this letter and am here today to seek your support and level of commitment to the Puente program and the students that it serves. I am also confident that many of these same students will come back to this community to make great contributions for a better tomorrow. Only you have the authority to make the right and just decision, not the convenient one. I hope you will reconsider to fully fund and support the Puente program in the years to come. Most respectfully, thank you for your time.
Was it Adriana?
Yes.
Thank you, Adriana. I appreciate your comments, and we did spend quite a bit of time at our last board meeting, and I know, speaking for myself as a board member, and I think most fellow board members would agree that our decision to cut Puente was not by any means convenient. As you stated in your letter, it was a difficult one, and it's one that comes after many other programs have also been cut. And as a board, we're going to work hard. We have a retreat coming up at the end of this month, and we'll be working hard in the next few months to prioritize programs such as Puente into a line of main issues that we want to prioritize in terms of when funding does come back, or if we can make changes in the budget, which things get implemented back in. And I'll let you know that Puente is high on that list. So we've had to cut lots of programs, but as a board, that one wasn't one that was not convenient whatsoever, and we will work hard to get it back where the community wants it, and we know the students need it. First, any other board members want to speak to that?
One final comment is, we all obviously think we do value the program, or we wouldn't have created it in the first place. Putting it in a little bit different perspective is that 4 years ago, we had nearly 11,000 students here. Currently, we have something north of 8,000. We've made cuts that resulted in 2,500 students not being able to go to school at all. In reducing the Puente program, that's a roughly equivalent of telling 30 or 40 students they can actually come instead. So the choice really comes down to if we choose to fund the Puente program on its original level, we need to tell 30 or 40 students they can't come here. And that's, I don't know, I don't pretend to know what's the best choice, but for me, that was why I made that choice.
Do we have any more public comments concerning items not on the agenda?
Yes, good evening. My name is Anna Limon, and I also have something to say about the current topic. And I have a letter that I'd like to read to you guys. Dear members of the board, my name is Anna Limon. I'm 33 years old. I'm a mother of 4 children, a productive member of my community, and I'm a Puentista, a veteran Puentista. I participated in the program in the 2001-2002 academic year. Currently, I'm a graduate student at CSU Fresno. I'm majoring in social work. And my daughter, Liliana, who is here, is also a member of the Puente Project. And I was very saddened by the news that the program might be cut. Because I would like other students to have the opportunities that I was granted when I participated in this program. When I began my education here at Sequoias, I was the first female in my family to attend college. I faced many challenges. Writing papers, reading endless pages, and learning mathematical equations was very challenging. But it was more challenging to manage my personal responsibilities due to my culture and to adjust to the culture of academia. However, the skills that I learned in Puente helped me improve and overcome those challenges. I continue to take advantage of the rewards that I gained from the program, especially my writing skills. I have been able to be successful in my career, in graduate school, and in my personal life because of these skills. I owe my academic success to the Puente Project. I have a 4.0 GPA at Fresno State. I am in my last semester for my master's in social work. And these skills, I would not have gained them if I didn't have the Puente project. And I'm going to stay away from my letter because I want to address what you said. I am aware that we all have to make cuts. I'm in social work. We deal with cuts every day. And I think what we need to focus is on the success. If you have a program like Puente, how many students are they going to be successful? And of the 30 students that you're going to add, are they going to have the skills and the resources to be successful and to make it to graduate school? Because I know personally that without Puente, I would not have made it to graduate school without the writing skills. My master's program was very impacted, and my personal statement that I wrote was what got me into graduate school. And the study skills that I gained in Puente helped me be a full-time mother, a full-time student, a full-time community member, and be able to have a 4.0 GPA. So I would really urge the board to reconsider continuing to fund this program, because I would like other students to have the same opportunities. My brother and his wife were Puentistas also. My brother attended UCLA. My sister-in-law got her MBA from Bakersfield, CSU Bakersfield. And my cousin is attending here and participated in Puente last year. Now my daughter is here. So this program really does produce more than just the success that you see in numbers, but it's also in the narratives of those that attended this program and how it changed their lives. So I really urge you to consider and think about those narratives and about how it's changed the quality of life and the impact that we have in our community. Because I learned leadership skills in Puente, and I was empowered to work with youth. And I work with youth in probation and foster care, and I encourage them to pursue their education. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Do we have any other further public comments concerning items not on the agenda?
Hello, thank you for your time. My name is Amr Guzman. I'm a former Puentista and COS student. And I have currently I'm working in education myself. And I have a letter here that I've written, and also one from a former Puentista who couldn't make it here because currently she is working in New York City for ABC in journalism. To whom it concerns, I'm writing this letter to express my concern about the college's decision to eliminate funding to such a great and beneficial program like Puente. As a former participant, I know that this troubling decision will not only affect current COS students, but future and former students as well. When I first arrived at COS, I felt lost and alone since most of my friends from high school had decided not to seek a higher education. However, things changed rapidly during my second semester after one of my former English professors recommended me to the Puente program. Puente is not only a program that helps guide students through college. It's a family that one can go to when things in school and life become too much to bear. I cannot find enough words to express the type of passion, love, and patience Ms. Guadiana has for her students. It might have taken me more than the average student to graduate from COS. However, part of the reason I was able to was due to Ms. Guadiana and the Puente program's help and support. One may ask themselves how cutting such a great program would negatively affect former students if they no longer attend COS. As a person who had the opportunity to participate and be guided by such a great program, I know firsthand I am only the second person in my entire family to earn a bachelor's degree and was the first one to ever leave home and attend the university. While at the university, there were various problems that arose with certain classes that the university had not transferred that I knew met certain requirements. I did not know what to do until I remembered Ms. Guadiana's motto, once a Puentista, always a Puentista. I quickly called her to ask what I could do, and it was through her help that I was able to resolve the issue. There are many other occasions that I was able to go to my Puente family for advice, help, and support. I recently moved back to the Valley after earning my bachelor's degree in English as well as a single subject teaching credential, and was able to communicate with some of my friends who are also former Puentistas. One friend who was in the program at the same time shared with me how excited she was about the job she had accepted to work for NBC in New York City. Her dream had always been to work in journalism. In addition, a friend who is now like a brother to me, whom I met through Puente, recently shared with me he is enjoying the opportunity of working with children in education. These two individuals, such as myself and countless others, have been beneficiaries of the help and support the great program like Puente gives its students. It would be such a tragic decision to eliminate such a productive program which gives to its students and the community in so many different ways. From the bottom of my heart, I truly hope that you will reconsider eliminating funding to this program. To whom it may concern, her name is Christina Lopez. It all began in the fall semester of 2003, my transformation. I sat down with a woman I was introduced to by a counselor at the College of Sequoias. I was handed a brochure with information on the Puente project. I have never heard of this program before, but instantly recognized its authenticity based on the attention I was receiving from one of the biggest proponents, Teresa Guadiana. Little did I know at the time, this woman sitting before me would eventually become the catalyst that would propel me toward opportunities beyond my wildest dreams. My transformation continued in the classroom of Puente, where teachers like Miss Johnny Jordan, would hang on every word I wrote while making sure my sentence structure was as perfect as my prose. I built confidence within myself as my writing improved. Late night phone calls and replies to early morning emails assured me that Guadiana and Jordan were not a part of the Puente program to merely teach, but to train me for life of immeasurable success in and out of the classroom. In the spring of the following year, flowers bloomed and new opportunities grew for me as I was joining the Puente class on a trip to Southern California, my first time visiting the City of Angels. The organized trip would take us to the steps of the University of California, Los Angeles, with the sole intention of demonstrating what is possible within my reach while enrolled in the Puente project. At that moment, I had already made history with my family as I set feet on a 4-year university campus. It was thrilling, and I could feel the energy tingle all the way down to my toes, standing on those steps beforehand. College was simply a distant dream, an afterthought I believe only truly privileged intellects received. At the time, I was too naive to recognize that education isn't received, but earned. As I continued with the Puente program, I was earning my opportunity towards the higher education I so desired. For this time, the concept of earning a degree at a 4-year institution was not far-fetched or fleeting, but more real than ever before. It had become possible for me. Fast forward to 2006 when I enrolled into Point Loma Nazarene University in sunny San Diego, a city I had only seen on maps and in postcards. I was able to transfer from COS to Point Loma University with the help and recommendation of my mentors and now friends, Ms. Guadiana and Ms. Jordan. These were women who saw potential within me beyond the walls of the Puente project and had recognized my thirst for higher education. They saw that I was capable of attaining such an education. 2 years later, at the height of the recession, I graduated from Point Loma Nazarene with a bachelor's degree from a 4-year university. This was a feat that had never been accomplished within my family. It was my man-on-the-moon moment, and I will always remember it. Prior to my graduation, I was able to secure a job as a part-time news writer and producer for a local television station. Shortly after receiving my diploma in the mail, I kind of made history again with my family, as I was the first to be let go from my job. At 23 years old, with a bachelor's degree in broadcast journalism, I did not let this minor setback deter me from continuing to follow my passion in journalism. Instead, I decided it was time to switch gears and re-enter the world of academia. After a brief stint with a local newspaper in San Diego County as a military reporter, I applied to the Graduate School of Journalism program at the University of California, Berkeley. When I was accepted, I called upon Ms. Guadiana for her unfailing support and guidance as I entered into unfamiliar territory known as graduate school. She assured me the work would be strenuous, but would reap incredible rewards. In May of this past year, I made history again as I earned my master's degree in journalism from UC Berkeley, the #1 rated public university in the nation. Today I'm writing this letter to you from New York City, where I now work full-time as a Disney ABC News fellow. The corporation pilot program saw hundreds of applicants from across the country. In the end, executives presented only 3 individuals with offers for employment within the news division. Although my transformation into a strong, thriving, and educated woman is not near completion, I can confidently say without question or hesitation that I owe every bit of my life's success to the Puente Project and the incredible women who helped shape me into the individual I am today. To prevent the Puente Project from continuing to give Hispanics like myself opportunities not only towards higher education, but also towards a higher quality of life would be a disservice no board of educators, group of legislators, or body of colleges could justify fiscally, reasonably, or ethically. I will continue to be a champion of this program, not only for what it has enabled me to do within my own life and the life of my family, but for the message it sends to Latinas and Latinos everywhere. Si se puede. Yes, can be done.
What I'm picking up here, there seems to be some misunderstanding that we cut the Puente program. We had to cut a portion of the Puente program. The Puente program is still in operation. You still have a counselor. You serve 50 students. Now you're going to serve 25. Like all belt-tightening situations, maybe you need to serve 40 instead of 25. The mentor program is still in place. All of these things, the Puente program just didn't disappear because we felt that we could not fund it any longer. I realize that it's an excellent program and I am a firm supporter of it, but we have to look at 8,000 other students or 3,000 other students that we're no longer serving. And we need to ask some of our regular counselors how many students they serve. They serve hundreds of students per counselor, not 25. The program can still operate, and it's still operating. It is not operating at full capacity. But yet, to say that we've eliminated the program is entirely false. We did not eliminate the program. We had to cut back on the program. So, I don't know, I keep hearing this in the community. Oh, you cut the Puente program. We had to cut a portion of it, but we did not eliminate the program. And if it can be restored in future days, we will be the first to do so, because it is an excellent program.
And I think we get the fact that you guys are passionate about it. The program has made a world of difference in your life. I mean, we would love to be able to leave it at 50 if we could, but we just don't feel we have a choice. So.
Yeah, but if it would have been at 25 when I was here, who's to say that I would have been one of those ones that left out and I would not be where I am today because of
When did you go to school here?
I came here from 2003 to about 2008.
Yeah, because I don't think the 50 didn't happen until, what, 3 years ago?
All I'm saying is, let's just say if I would have been a student now, I would be one of those ones.
We understand that serving 50 students is clearly our preference as opposed to serving 25. I think the point that the board members are trying to make is because I've answered a couple of emails also, there is some feeling out there, maybe a misunderstanding that the Puente program has been eliminated. And that all we're saying is that's not true. The Puente program has been sized down to a 25 student cohort until we can restore it to the 50 student cohort. And we've operated at both levels in the past. So if there's any more public comment, I think we can take that, but we probably won't have a board debate about it at this point.
No, because I just, I haven't commented much on this before, but there's no question based on what I've heard here today and what I heard at the last board meeting that the Puente program is an excellent program, has an outstanding success ratio, and I wish that we could do what Puente does on an even broader scale across the board, so that everybody would have those kind of opportunities. And maybe those 3,000 students that maybe aren't coming because they maybe don't have the wherewithal to be successf's, those students can be successful as well. So I get it. I understand it. It's very successful. It's just a situation of the campus as a whole, to me. Thank you.
May I speak, Madam President? Yes. I wasn't really going to speak today, but as you could see from the last, again, I'm Teresa Guadiana, and you didn't know me, one of the coordinators of the program. And these comments that were been made by the board members, you said you wanted to clarify some errors. First off, I don't only serve 25 students. I serve hundreds of students per semester, because it takes them more than one semester to be ready to transfer on. And the filling and the things that are happening on the campus today, and I'm not sure how much the board is aware, but there is a chipping away of the project. First you want the cohort, next the secretary will be gone. Okay, so that's going to eliminate many of the activities or things that we're able to do with having that extra help. And sticking to the letter of the law, that the MOU, the memo of understanding that comes through from the Puente State Office, will still reduce our program from being the top program in the state. And my work ethic is to always do the best that I can do. And I have done my best to make College of the Sequoias and the Puente Project be recognized on a state and national level. So make no mistake that not only do I feel that, but members of the community, the mentors, the students, see the writing on the wall, and there is a chipping away at the project. In fact, just recently, as this afternoon, President Carrizosa responded to the state Puente director and said, we will try not to eliminate Puente. To me, that implies that there is somewhere in the future a possibility of eliminating the program as a whole. And you talk about, this is the second time Mr. Zumwalt has talked about, if we cut this program, then somebody else will. But again, the idea here is you're eliminating success. The last English pass rate, 75% of the Puente students pass their English portfolio to go on to English 1. When you take out those students, all other English 251 pass rate for the portfolio was 49%. Now these are blind pass rates. The English teacher don't know who's passing and who's not passing. They just read the portfolio. So if we're looking about efficiency and effectiveness, as the president has been talking about, to be efficient and effective is to get the students that you have in class and pass them through to the next level so they don't have to repeat and repeat and repeat or drop out of school. And that's what the student does. So in my eyes, it's helping the college save money by helping these students be successful and not having to drop out of school and have empty seats where somebody else could have taken. President Carrizosa has also talked about the other programs that were eliminated. But again, in my eyes, these programs are eliminated because there wasn't the staff. There was not a full-time paralegal person. That's why that program was cut. The vet tech program was not accredited because we didn't have a full-time staff. The French program was cut. It's not even a program, it's classes, because the French teacher retired, so there's not a staff member there. The honors program, I don't believe that program had the adequate staffing to fully get their programs up to the maximum capacity. They didn't have enough students in those classes, so that was probably an easier cut to make. But then we have students in our classes. We have full classes. So in my eyes, and of course I'm biased, those are not equal things to say that they're passed, that they're the same type of cuts. So I think you're hearing these students, and there's many that, and I'll present these letters that weren't here. I mean, they're asking, what else can we do? I think their voice should be heard, whether you want to keep hearing it or not. These are members of the community, the students, the staff, the mentors that have a concern and an issue, and they're bringing it forward. And I have some other letters that I would like to give to the board from students who could not be here. I know President Carizosa has gotten some emails, and he's responded to those. But these are still concerns that they have. So again, when you have your board retreat, President Carizosa and Board President Cardosa, if you would take those things into consideration, not just the finances, but the programs at work and the success and the impact that it has on these students of Tulare County, where you actually make a difference in the lives and they come out and are leaders, and to look at, you know, if you're comparing this, are we really comparing apples and apples or apples and oranges with programs that don't even have staff that said they were cut when these are being cut? And I would like to submit these other letters that were either emailed to me or given to me, or I'll just submit all the letters. Some of them are here today. I don't know if they'll read them, and some of them aren't.
Just for the record, you're welcome to come, and we encourage you to come and continue to talk to us. I think that Essa is right, that all of our voices need and deserve to be heard. So never feel unwelcome before the board. It is difficult. I don't think, as we've said a number of times, nobody's really enjoying any of this. You know, it's a bit of a debate, I guess, a broader discussion about whether something is being cut because there's staff in place and you're going to reduce some staff, or whether something's being cut because there was a commitment to buy the staff for the program and you had to make a budget decision not to. So when you take a look at programs like veterinary tech and others, paralegal, for example, there was a natural loss of staffing, and then a decision had to be made at that point. There was a program, or there was a requirement for staffing to be purchased. And in the budget crisis, the decision not to purchase that staffing was a decision not to advance that program, to suspend its full implementation. So it was different, as Teresa said, it was a different set of circumstances, but it wasn't really different in the sense that those programs would be operational. They were expecting to be operational, and because in the absence of any staffing, the board decided not to fill those programs, there was a decision at that point to reduce the scope of those programs. So I think it is difficult. There is success. I think it is an effective program. Efficiency is an interesting word because efficiency implies that we do it as cost effectively as possible. And I know we can talk about the numbers, but one of the things about a program like Puente is it does have a higher cost associated with it. This board, if dollars were not an objective, would staff the entire College of the Sequoias under a Puente model. And by the staffing and the counseling time and the small cohorts and the targeted scheduling and the mentoring program for every single student in this university. But it can't happen because it's too expensive. There's just not enough public money to be able to do that. So our philosophy, at least since the time that I've arrived here, the direction that was laid before me and that the board has carried on since I've been here, is to the extent possible, if we cannot fully eliminate programs, but either suspend them or reduce them and keep a portion in place, we position ourselves then to expand again as resources get better. So as the board members reiterated, there isn't an elimination of Puente, there is a reduction in the scope from 2 cohorts to 1. I personally can tell you right now publicly on the record, I have no intention of carrying out plans to eliminate that it's the beginning of an erosion. I feel like it's been a good effort on our part not to fight off, and this is what I said in my response to the folks at Berkeley. We've had to resist the discussions in budget meetings about the elimination of these extra kinds of support services altogether. So if there was ever an opportunity to have eliminated something like Puente, it would have happened in this worst recession in the history of California. And we didn't bring that recommendation forward. So I can't imagine a more difficult scenario ahead of us where we might do that. So I don't see that happening. In fact, what I see, especially with the governor's proposal for the January budget now, is it potentially is looking a little better. Maybe the opportunity to expand back is going to come sooner than we thought. And again, these things won't make any of our puentistas feel any better. But it is the rationale, and it is a way of sharing with you that we understand. And you are always more than welcome to bring your passion before us and continue to remind us of the importance of the impact of this kind of a program on your lives, because that means a lot to us. And that's what makes the decision hard at this level as well.
Well, from a board's perspective, we all value the program tremendously, and we want all of you to know that these aren't easy decisions by no means. And we really, I guess we've seen the numbers and we know how successful the program is. And at our retreat, we will be looking at numbers, and we hope to spend some time on student success. And we know we have to do a lot more with a lot less dollars these days, and it's important that we all continue the dialogue to make the best use of our dollars and our resources. So thank you. Yes.
Since two of you addressed me directly, I haven't heard anything that would make me change my mind in the short term, but Ms. Lamone said something that got my attention. She talked about, did you compare the quality of the outcome from the 20 program versus the potential for success in other students? And in future considerations, I'll go back and revisit that issue. You make a good point. But in the short term, I don't think we're able to change our mind.
Do you have any further public comments concerning items not on the agenda?
Hello, my name is Ana Suarez, and I graduated College Sequoias in 2009, and I would like to share my life. My name is Ana Suarez, and I'm a student at San Francisco State University. As a 24-year-old daughter of immigrants who came from a broken home, I stand as living proof of the effectiveness and impact the Puente Project has on its participants. The years I spent at College of Sequoias would not have been so fulfilling had it not been for the Puente Project. Through Puente, I found unconditional support and guidance, as well as a network of individuals who truly cared about my well-being and my goals. As I visited universities throughout California with Puente and listened to their motivational speakers, I began to believe that there lay a possibility for me to succeed through education. These experiences helped me take school more seriously, and my Puente family at College of Sequoias was there to nurture my newly found motivation. The counselors and instructors of the Puente Project were always helpful, honest, and most of all, empowering. I feel truly blessed to be able to call them family. The Puente Project is more than a transfer readiness program. For many of us, it is the difference between surviving off a minimum wage and diving into the gold mine of our own mind. For many years, this program has been nurturing the scholars, educators, and leaders of tomorrow. Therefore, cutting this program would not only be a terrible mistake, but also a very irresponsible decision. We humans are facing such a critical time in our history with our social, economic, political, and environmental conditions reaching an unfortunate decline. It is programs like these that give us hope for a brighter future, because it is programs like these that help mold the minds of the future. I please ask that you spare the life of the Puente Project for the sake of our community. It has had a positive impact on our students, and they're the ones who have the power to make a significant difference in the future. Thank you for your time.
Any further public comments for the items on the agenda?
Dear Board, my name is Jessica Suarez. I am a graduate student in the Department of Chicano and Chicano Studies at California State University Northridge. I did my undergraduate work at the University of California, Santa Barbara. I received my bachelor's degree in Chicano and Chicano Studies in 2011. My parents separated and were divorced while my sisters and I were in high school, which was a tragic turning point in our lives that has made it very difficult financially and emotionally. This became an obstacle in reaching our educational goals and advancing as scholars in our community, as we did not have the necessary tools to succeed until we joined the Puente Project. My twin sister, my younger sister, and I are daughters of immigrants, and my sisters are whom I have shared the same life struggles. My sisters and I were all part of the Puente Project at the College of the Sequoias, and we've benefited greatly from it. The Puente Project was what equipped me with the important tools to be an effective student. It gave me the confidence and intellect to further my education and be admitted into the UC system. I will never forget the trips we made to visit the UC campuses and the effort our teachers put into making such amazing experiences. This motivated me and taught me to believe in myself and that anything I set my mind to is attainable and possible. The Puente Project teaches their students to be leaders and to believe in themselves, to further their education and eventually return and give back to their communities. This is what I plan to do, as it is because of the Puente Project, Ms. Teresa Guadiana and Ms. Joni Jordan, where they are the ones who created opportunities, and for this I am forever grateful. I invite you to reflect on how many students have been served and enlightened through the Puente Project. I can only speak for myself, however, I was saved through Puente and ask that you please consider from cutting any of the Puente Project. The removal of Puente can be extremely detrimental to the numbers of youth continuing and furthering their education. Therefore, this will diminish the number of leaders we will have in our community. We hold the future today. Thank you very much for your time.
Do you have any further public comments? Items not on the agenda?
My name is Consuelo Maravilla, and I'm involved with the Puente program also. I'm on the outside as a mentor though. So I've been involved as a mentor for 4 years now. And what attracted me the most is it took me back to the struggles that I had as a freshman going straight to a 4-year university. And all the things that were lacking that would have made me much more successful and done the school at a more timely rate, which was my writing. I struggled with a lot of the writing, the time management, the leadership stuff when you're thrown into a big university and you feel lost, coming from a community like this. I was born and raised here in the area, grew up in Exeter, so to go from there to University of California, Davis was it was a nice town, but it was still a big community that I was kind of throwing myself into. So that was the first thing that I looked at when I learned about Puente. I looked at what it offered to the students, and I immediately saw myself in what I struggled with and thought that was exactly what would have made me more successful at that point. Looking at it as a mentor, I've also been able to be involved with, at this point, I'm my 4th student, and I look at being able to impact them and give them skills that maybe if I had had them, it would have helped me, whether it was just having to talk to them at what it feels like to be on big classroom for a change as opposed to a high school, or teaching them life skills as far as what it feels like to when you're in a professional level with other people, and how networking is important and how you need to befriend everybody in this world, because that's what takes you anywhere. So looking at that, I looked at that. I looked at what I was lacking and see that I was able to offer that as Puente as a tool to be able to provide that and volunteer my time. I obviously believe in the program because I've been in it for 4 years. So I think that it's an awesome tool in bridging that gap for students. I urge you to consider the funding to it. I believe in the program and the success of it, and I think that, like the other students said, the more that the funding slowly starts to chip away, so if it starts slowly and then we feel like it's going to eventually eliminate the program, then obviously we start to panic because we want to see things progress as opposed to get eliminated. So look at the success of it compared to other programs. I know that our program is a model compared to other appointed programs in the state. I know that they look at it, that we actually have all the components to this appointed program where some of the other colleges aren't able to have that. So I'm proud to say that I'm part of the COS one, even though I have a lot of colleagues that are in different, working at different universities. So it makes me proud to say that I'm involved specifically with the COS program, and that we actually are able to uphold the whole model and give, offer this to the students. So I urge you to consider funding the program in its entirety, as it could be crucial to, you know, the success of many students.
Do we have any other comments concerning items not on the agenda? We move on to reports. And first we have Daniel, let's start student trustee report. Daniel?
No report to give at this time. I just hope to have a great semester with you guys.
School just started today, right?
Did you get all your classes?
No. One of my classes was hampered and I didn't realize it, so I had to drop it.
Okay.
But I've been up since 6 years.
Okay. Therefore, no report. Do we have any board member reports? John?
One is I went to the convocation from last Friday, and I personally got a lot out of it. I changed roles, spent all my time listening and none talking. And I went around the various boards and read what people wrote. And I frankly thought there were a lot of good ideas posted on that. And I enjoyed it. Second one is unfair, I guess. How many times have Danny and I have complained about that box where it gets moved?
Made smaller.
The rolling cart?
Yeah.
He and I can't see great portions of the audience.
I don't know that I've heard that complaint.
Probably the last time I
I hear it all the time.
The last time.
This is my first time hearing it, right, John?
Probably
go to work on. All right.
Probably is.
Okay.
Did you hear what your student said?
Oh, I told him. But he's right. He actually encouraged me, though, if he told the truth.
Okay. Do we have any other further board member reports? I'd like to echo what John said. I also attended convocation, and I also spent time listening. I did a little time more talking than John did, but I tried to raise my hand when it was time. Jennifer, I tried to help you out. It was tough. But I agree with John. I think there were some good ideas, and I'm curious to see how we can incorporate those into our board retreat, Jennifer, because I think there's going to be some good stuff there. I'd also just like to take a moment to briefly talk about Tulsa's opening and the ceremonies that were held there. The staff did a tremendous job in putting that together. And since Wednesday, because I live in Tulare, probably every place I've gone, from the local A&W to school to church to a dinner that we went to on Saturday evening, I've heard more than a few comments about how nice the opening ceremony was. And what I really enjoyed was to see a lot of, I gotta use the right term here, the older generation who has been waiting for this campus and hoping and waiting for 10, 15 years with the sale of the land. And it was just really fun to see so many different groups of people come together that day. So I didn't stop by there today. Ken did, and was at Tulare today to see that opening happen. And we're just excited to hear the numbers and how it all went today. I see Larry's not here, so we don't get a first-hand report.
I was surprised to see how many cars go in the parking lot. When I first saw the parking lot, I was thinking, oh, that's way too big. First day, and a lot of cars there. And as I mentioned to somebody, first question I received from a student that was walking past me. Well, first question he asked me which class I taught. The second and most important question was, where could you get a good hamburger? So things look to be going well.
My friends who have students at Mission Oak at the high school said, we got to get there early. We heard the traffic's going to be horrible. So I don't know how the traffic went, but they were all prepared knowing today that COS was going to open, knowing it would take them longer and that light wasn't going yet. So I also took my kids back at like 3:30 when things had really settled down. There was hardly anybody left, and kind of let them run around a little bit without them getting away from me. And they really loved the farm animal complex and seeing all of that and saying, you know, they can't wait to be there, which is a few years away. And then they enjoyed watching the helicopters leave. We waited. You know, we were late picking up my other son because they couldn't wait to see the little helicopters leave. And we waited, you know, 20 minutes, and they really enjoyed that. And I had one of my boys came home, my 10-year-old, and said, "Mom, I was at school and I told somebody I went to COS and I'm going to go to COS when I get older." And they looked at me and said, "You can't go to COS. It's just COS. You have to move away. And then you can live with your friends. If you stay at COS, you got to live with your parents." And his comments were, "Have you seen COS?" So we have a 10-year-old out there, you know, really advertising for COS right now. So.
Well, Larry, one of the things we really need to work on is getting people informed of what the Tulare campus is. Too many people I talk to say, "Oh, you just moved your ag program over there, didn't you?" And I said, "No, have you been by there?" "No." I said, "Well, go out there, and as you're driving along, you'll see these big, tall buildings. It's not an Indian casino, it's COS."
Well, you know what, Earl, I think I was standing in line yesterday waiting to pick up some food, and I had someone behind me that I didn't even know, and I overheard her talking to somebody about Tulare COS, and she said that her daughter got all of her classes there and didn't need to come to Visalia at all, and that she had gotten her general ed classes, and then the other person said, "Really?" And then pretty soon there were 3 people. So I think after today, that's going to take off on its own.
Yeah.
It will. The other thing I have on my list, quickly, I would just like to ask my fellow board members, we have a retreat coming up, and I've met with Stan on some of the items that we feel are important and trying to prioritize. We will be spending some time talking about our accreditation report. We're going to be talking, obviously, about budget. We'll be talking, but I'd like to spend some time on program review and our student success. Is there anything else that the board would like to put on that list so that staff can prepare for us at the end of this month?
What about the Child Development Center?
Can we talk about Tulare bonds maybe a little bit
Yeah,
more?
I'll finish paying for the campus.
And obviously, we were talking about the pointer program too, I'm sure.
There'll be a lot of things rolled up in the context of budget.
Yeah.
But one other point I'd like to add, you know, the citizens of Hanford made a major investment in a facility over there at Hanford. The idea of teaching medical technology there. And we haven't delivered our end of the bargain. The city went to that last for $1 a year. And I know some of the equipment left there went to Tulare. I want to talk a bit about people keeping the faith with the city of Hanford on that building, and what our plans in the future would be to utilize that as we should, as we said we would.
Well, I thought a little bit about the conversation with that. Those opportunities might present
The
themselves.
world's different than it was at the time, but that doesn't mean that we should just walk away.
Stan, really quickly, John, I'm with Kristen and Larry right now, and the plan is to have an full industrial maintenance program there in the fall. So it will be there.
We'll have a report ready for the retreat.
I've got more than a little heat on the issue, and I want to insert myself, not to the degree of the side of things, but to the degree of knowing things and being able to champion whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah, I think when you hear our update, they'll answer a number of those questions for you.
Very encouraging to hear.
Anything else?
Security at the Tulare campus.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's been discussed, and I have some concerns about now that the campus is completely open and it's kind of out on the outskirts.
Yeah, we've been working on
that consideration.
We can do that, board member Nunes, and we've been working on just an updated campus-wide, college-wide security schedule. And we're working with Chief and our Student Services VP and Dean, and I think we'll be ready about the time that retreat rolls around to give you a full update on that as well.
Okay. Any other board member reports? Do we have a foundation report?
You know, I'm going to say on behalf of Mr. Renton tonight, he's not here. Were you going to say anything on behalf of Foundation, Kevin? He didn't give you anything to report.
He did not, no.
Steve, if you didn't know, has had surgery, a little bit of cervical spine surgery, and so he's out right now, but we'll have a report next meeting.
accreditation report. Dr. Lucerno.
Hi, everybody. So for accreditation, in December, STAM received a draft report from our chair, Willie Duncan, that was going to be submitted to ACCJC. So we were able, Stan and I had a chance to review and respond to that report, and we gave, it was just at that point, we were only able to make review errors. So if there were any errors, we were able to report back to them. When we did, Superintendent Carasosa reported back a few errors that we found as clarifications. We received the final draft on December 19th, and then that was the final draft that went to the ACCJC. They met on January 10th and 11th, and on the morning of the 10th, or afternoon, ended up being afternoon of the 10th, Superintendent Carasosa and I were able to sit in on a phone call with the commission. At that day, the commission was reviewing our report, and they allowed 5 whole minutes for Superintendent Carasosa to give any feedback on anything that had happened since our October visit until today. So he was able to give some updates on some of the issues that we knew were part of the recommendations, like the SLOs and campus dialogue and things like that. So he was able to give an update on a lot of the progress that we've made over the last couple of months. We were asked several questions by the commission at that time, and Superintendent Carasosa was able to respond to those. It should be, we expect in the next hopefully 2 to 3 weeks, we'll hear something back from them as to the status of our report and what the findings were. And as soon as we know that, we will be the first to find out. In the interim, on the 11th, well, on the 10th, we had our managers all half-day meeting, and we focused some of that time on accreditation. And then on the 11th, at our all-day convocation, or our morning convocations with all of the faculty, as was alluded to or mentioned already, we focused that 2-hour time on accreditation. And so following an introduction and overview from Superintendent Carasosa, we broke the faculty and staff in our participants into 4 groups that dealt with the 4 standards of accreditation. And at that time, we had developed, when we handed out through the Institutional Planning and Effectiveness Committee, we had broken the recommendations down into 8 questions that we posed to the campus community. And the groups went around to the 4 standard stations and answered the 8 questions. They talked about it in small groups, and then they were able to write their thoughts and their feedback on each of these questions. So it's actually, as Mr. Zimwalt and Ms. Cardova mentioned, it was really effective. We felt there was a lot of dialogue that went on, a lot of people were able to discuss this. We have taken all of those notes, and we have 4 staff members compiling them, typing them up for us. So they'll be ready for the Institutional Planning Effectiveness Committee on the 24th, and for the board retreat on the 25th, we'll be able to show you an initial draft of those recommendations back from the faculty and staff. Our plan is to take those recommendations and incorporate them into any follow-up reports that we're going to have to the ACCJC, and also to keep it in a continual flow of what we are working on for accreditation. Any questions?
Still have more minutes.
Lots of it. It's a constant process. Thank you.
Okay, just to repeat a couple of things quickly, the board retreat is set for Friday, January 25th, and Saturday, half-day, January 26th. We'll be in Hanford, and we'll have more details to follow, but we know you all have that time blocked on your calendar. We've been doing some pre-planning for the structure of that agenda. We can incorporate the topics that you've shared with us this evening, as well as anything else that you might think of. Please don't hesitate to email. We're trying to create kind of a common connection between what we did with our management council retreat this past Thursday, last week, leading into the convocation, as Jennifer mentioned. We've built some themes around accreditation, but in addition to that, with all of the managers who were there last Thursday, we kind of did a mid-year checkup of where we are on the things that we all sat down together and discussed when I was a new president back in the fall, and followed up on some of the progress reports of things that we had set out to do this first semester and where we are. And we've also adopted some literature and some research that we're going to look at together to kind of calibrate ourselves as managers and build some common goals for our institutional leadership. We think that's going to work nicely in combination with taking the sources of information that we have to work with, accreditation, the new legislation in the Student Success Act, our master plan, which is a 10-year document, and our strategic plan, which is a 5-year document, and start to distill those into some practical actions that we believe we can measure and try to help manage ourselves as we respond to our accreditation. So all of that woven together with convocation, I think, went very well. And also the Tulare ribbon cutting, which was a big part of this spring semester, and getting ready to kick off the new year. I was there this morning at the start of 8 o'clock classes, and we had, as Board Member Nunes mentioned, a full parking lot and several classrooms of students full. Want to commend the office staff for their ability to be patient and take the questions and the comments. And there was a nice, steady stream of business, but nothing that overwhelmed anybody, which I thought was very nice. And then we took a break at noon, midday today, the vice president and myself, and we went over there right after lunch as well, and wanted to take a look at what the afternoon sessions look like. Tomorrow will be the first Tuesday in the rotation, so we're excited to see how that goes. Provost Dudo is not here tonight because there are classes tonight, and he's on campus until after 7 o'clock, making sure that all of that stuff gets rolling and ready to go for this evening. So from the ribbon cutting to the actual first day of classes, everything seems to have gone very nicely so far. Working out lots of little bugs. I suppose if you had technology staff in here and some of the clerical staff and student services staff, they'd have a list of the things that they were trying to answer today. But overall, there weren't any distress signals that came out, SOS flares going up or anything like that. So that was good. And then last but not least, I think you're all aware that the governor has proposed his January budget for the state of California. We have lots of information coming at us pretty quickly now. We gave you one handout this evening, and you know the website that we use for Community College League of California. We encourage you to continue to frequent that. Regular budget updates are coming out. We had an opportunity to sit in a webinar today and hear a little bit about that. The gist, the headlines are that there's going to be support for public education, and I think the governor's made that clear in the first proposal of the budget. But as you'll see tonight, when Brent reviews the final reading of the solvency plan, there's a fair amount of caution in our optimism, and I think we've got to go slowly and pace ourselves. But we'll have regular updates for you now on the state budget, and we'll be posting that information regularly via COSE News for our faculty, and we'll have regular information available for our community on our website. But the state budget process has begun in a post-Proposition 30 environment, and we'll see how that looks for public schools and for community colleges in particular.
Academic Senate report.
Good evening. Well, we're going to be spending a lot of quality time together in 2 weeks at the board retreat. And I just wanted to let you know what I'd be bringing. The ARC scorecard is almost finished. You should be seeing it in March with all of our numbers inputted. This scorecard will reflect what the state legislature wants us to consider as student success. The requirement is that you all see it and that it be reported in some way to the community. And I think that is going to be probably something we can focus on at the board retreat. The other thing that I would like to talk about are what I'm calling sponsored classes. If you remember my comments from the last board meeting, I had some issues with the consent items that were the MOUs with Corcoran and also Tulare. And I noticed that the consent calendar at this time, number 9, acknowledges the receipt of a donation
from Southern California Edison. So this is changed from an MOU to the current wording that says that the COS Foundation is thereby donating funds, approximately $17,000, to the general fund expenses for the purpose of expanding services to students. At the prior board meeting, it said that they were for funding classes. I did have a problem with that because we need to watch what's apportioned and non-apportioned. If we accept outside monies, we have to be very careful about that. Right now, the Senate is looking at some classes that will be offered at UPHS, Corcoran, probably VTech, where those high schools are paying for those courses. Again, if an outside agency pays for the course, it cannot be apportioned. I think that's something that we all need to understand, and we're looking into it right now. I have a meeting with President Carizosa and Jennifer Lacerna on the 23rd so that I understand what, I need to be telling folks about these classes also. I do think it's interesting, though, that the cost of these classes is being kept somewhere around $4,000. If that was the case for Puente, we would not be having the discussions we're having about cutting Puente, because Ruiz Foods gave almost $10,000, and I think if we're going to be using a figure for those classes, it needs to be the same figure for all classes that are paid for. And I think we need to spend time looking at that. I'd just like to say thank you to our VP, Brent. Are you here, Brent? You were magnificent at the Senate meeting when you talked about food services, and we already have a expert food critic back in the back who tried out the new cafe, and looks like things are going well. He gave a wonderful report, and if you would like to know anything about it, please read the campus news. They did a great job on the whole thing. I think I only have one more thing to say, and that is I need to read into the record something that you received from me quite a while ago, and I apologize for the font. It's so small, I'm going to have to just, stay on it. This is College of the Sequoias Academic Senate Resolution 11/12-3, the resolution for usage of the Tulare campus laboratory facilities. I sent this to you, you got it in your email. Since then, one of the principal authors of this resolution, Frank Tebow, has had discussions with President Carizosa. President Carizosa has had discussions with the Tulare schools. We feel like we're in a good place right now, but when this came out in October, there were questions that we needed answered. We feel like they're answered, but I do need to read it into the record, just so it's there. Okay? Bear with me. Whereas the College of the Sequoias Academic Senate and the Agriculture Division believe in and continue to support the mission of the College of the Sequoias District, and whereas the College of the Sequoias Academic Senate and the Agriculture Division are committed to maintaining academic excellence in all lecture and laboratory lessons, and whereas the College of the Sequoias Academic Senate and the Agriculture Division are committed to ensuring the successful completion of all course and program outcomes, and whereas these two entities are committed to complying with all state educational mandates as prescribed within the parameters of the collectively bargained master agreement memoranda of understanding and side letters, resolved that lecture and teaching laboratory facilities designated to serve COS program goals, COS agriculture curriculum, career and industry needs, and COS course objectives should be used principally for COS instructor-designed laboratory practices. Resolved that instruction in all lecture and teaching laboratory facilities shall follow established COS course outlines. Resolved that management, operation, laboratory technician, and maintenance practices shall be supervised and designed by the assigned COS instructor to ensure safe and successful lecture/laboratory instruction. Resolved that students shall have access to designated facilities only when enrolled in COS classes and under supervision of the assigned instructor/laboratory technician during scheduled lab hours. Resolved that the supervision of the management practices and maintenance of the facility/learning site shall be the responsibility of the assigned COS instructor, with assistance from the laboratory technician to address liability concerns. Resolved that maintenance of all the instructional facilities shall follow COS maintenance policies and procedures to address liability concerns. And resolved that all students are subject to the COS Student Code of Conduct and Board Policy. And finally, resolved, there should never be this many resolves, by the way, that the collectively bargained master agreement memoranda of understanding, side letters, as well as any negotiated and agreed to policies, procedures, and conditions shall be followed in achieving the mission of the college district. Frank Tebow, who was one of the principal authors of this, could not be with us, but if you have questions, may I suggest that you email him? I can answer some questions here for you now, but a lot of this was laid out because we think that there may be issues with the high school's proximity, the high school's use, the way things need to be designed and followed as far as procedures that relate to being on campus after instructors are gone, because again, a lot of this is agriculture related, and so you have animal pens, etc. So we're just, I guess, looking to make sure that everything is lined out correctly.
If I could add, there was a couple different meetings. This was the topic of discussion among the academic senate, and I think Michelle is correct in saying, you know, what's at the heart of it, I think, is concern on the part of the College of the Sequoias agriculture staff that the district use caution and due diligence in entering into any joint use agreements or program partnership agreements that they would with either Tulare Joint Union High School District or any high school really for that matter. We serve lots of high schools in the College of the Sequoias. What I was able to do by attending the academic senate meetings, because there was a good discussion, and in fact among the senate themselves, some faculty members asked if the senate had, you know, any kind of binding authority to control these issues. And I was able to clarify for them that the senate really isn't the body that has facility control. They have the opportunity to provide input, feedback, recommendations. That the board relies upon recommendations from them as one source of information. But what I shared with them is that we already also have a board approved and board enacted MOU, Memorandum of Understanding and Agreement with the Tulare Joint Union High School District that preceded all of this, even the construction. And so I think those faculty senate members then were able to say, okay, we're comfortable if you're wanting to put forth your thoughts and your concerns as a senate, that the college program be the primary program for operation and kind of the first order of priority for facilities and how the programs are designed. And that's consistent with even what's in our MOU with Tulare Joint Union High School District as it exists. But what I was able to clarify for them is we're already under board direction to enter into some sort of a shared joint use, joint program development agreement with Tulare Joint Union High School. I don't know that that's the most exciting thing for all of our ag faculty at this time, but I think they do understand that there's a commitment that we've made there, and there's a lot of work that needs to go in to setting up how that's done and what that looks like. Now, granted, we're a couple years away from that kind of implementation even being able to begin, but this, at the time it ended up being shared and then adopted at the academic senate level, was, and I say this with all due respect, was more symbolic than anything else, because they recognize they don't have authority in these areas, but they did want you to know how they felt. Is that fair?
It is fair. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to try to keep it brief because I don't want to say anything out of context here, but I think, and I'll have my fellow board members chime in a little bit. When I read this, I don't see I don't see this as following what we've already had in place. It seems to me to be making a statement on this is ours, and you have to, as teachers, this is going to be only ours. And I guess speaking from experience just being out there, I know in a couple of weeks we've already got a community event out there, and I know that there are going to be high school students out there working with animals, and there are going to be hundreds of people there on a Saturday for a sale to see our campus. There are going to be students from all over the state there. They're going to get to see what we have there. And I would really hate for things like this to be written that are seen as not those types of partnerships. Because when I read this, I may be taking it wrong, but as a community member, not as a teacher or a faculty member, this doesn't show that type of cooperation. And I would be very sad, because we already have an event coming up, to think that there's going to be any sort of issues with this event because of things like this being written. I am concerned.
I doubt if there would be pressure.
Well, this goes against, I think, what's already, I think, proposed in terms of events like this. You would hope something like this just doesn't never come up again.
I think the focus of this is not so much in events and projects as it is instructional program.
It's only in programs.
Yeah, the concern is when we enter into a commitment with any of the high schools to have a high school portion of an ag program possibly taught, that we do that thoughtfully because of the requirement for sharing the same facilities. For two programs, when you look at a high school ag animal program, for example, and you look at a community college animal program, they're markedly different in what they're trying to do. And I think that's really, when we were able to actually, to use my term, test and discuss it, we got down to that being the issue. And so rather than the Senate changing the resolution at that point, they acknowledged this is representative of our emphasis that any joint instructional programs that are going to be taught there be done thoughtfully and know that these are our concerns as a faculty going into that planning.
And I would just say, Lori, that we've had concerns about UPHS and VTech the same way. Sharing facilities with a high school is difficult. I don't know what to say. Legally, liability-wise.
Yes. No,
there's a lot to think about.
Yes,
yeah.
Understood.
I'd just like to say that there are two pieces of legislation that are going to really change us if they get passed, and then I'll step down. One is a different formula for funding. So right now we're funded in the third week, the census week, and they may go to a formula where we are funded for completion. If we are funded for completion, we want to have 500 point-based programs. Because right now, we don't have good completion except in the Puente program. The other issue that's going to be, and that's going to be a huge fight, that's going to be a huge fight in Sacramento, because it changes us from principally an access community college to success. And I know that that's part of the student success task force, but I mean, that's really putting it squarely out there. The other thing is students will have to pay for any cost of education after 90 units. So 90 units, once you hit that, then you're going to have to pay, I don't know what will figure the cost per unit, but I'm sure the state will tell us if it's $200 per unit or whatever. This is going to impact high unit majors like nursing and engineering. So if any of you have friends in the legislature, you might want to either talk to them about this, or maybe...
I'm afraid none of us have friends in that legislature.
Well, I'm looking at John, and I know John's got friends, so...
These are what Michelle's mentioning are a couple of the elements that are outlined in the governor's budget. If you've read more than just the newspaper, you have found these already in the reports, but she's raising good points for us to keep track of.
Well, and I know with board members, I just got some this last week on the student success on the way the funding, so it was interesting to say the least, but I didn't realize it was such a part of the budget.
Right.
And I didn't realize the two were going to coordinate so quickly according to them at this point. So we'll need an update on that at the retreat too, because that changes, I guess, the way we do things big time, huh?
Yeah, really big time.
Okay.
Lori, I have some questions for Michelle.
Sure.
You early on in your presentation, you talked about two things I didn't understand very well. I'd like to elaborate a little bit. You made reference to apportionment as if that was something to be feared. And you also made reference to the cost per classes and being apparently you didn't like the way it's being done. Would you elaborate a little bit so I can understand what your goals are?
Right now, it was those two MOUs that came out last time that really caused all of this kind of to come up to the surface. But if you have outside agencies paying for classes, you're not using the general fund, you cannot claim those classes for apportionment because it would be like double dipping.
You're talking about the FTES, is that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
And
aren't there colleges getting in trouble for that right now?
yes.
I suppose there are, but what Michelle's referring to are the kinds of classes where agencies or outside entities pay us the cost associated with offering the class, and then we make it available to them, but we don't collect a portion of it.
So you're warning us not to double dip, is that what you're doing?
I am.
I hear you.
But the other thing I'm going to get into later is the fact that we have a priority registration policy that says high school students do not go first, because this is part of Ed Code. High school students go last. But if a high school pays for a course, then we are going to enroll their students as non-apportioned students, and they are going to be first. And that is the Senate's issue. Some other people have other issues, but that is a Senate issue.
Would your efforts be to make it not happen, or to find a way to make it happen?
We need to talk about it. That's what we're going to talk about on the 23rd.
You don't have an opinion?
Personally, I think we're trying to get around the priority registration model that we've designed and that the state has told us we have to use. And I'm a little concerned that if the Chancellor's office found out that we were putting high school students first, even though we said, oh, but they're not apportioned, I think that could be an issue.
And we've taken a look at this. We do have a legal advisory on it, and we'll be sharing that. There is, Michelle points out a good kind of juxtaposition, and that is that there needs to be priority enrollment, but there are also avenues for, if the course is sponsored by an outside agency, for them to tailor the class to be offered to their students. So one doesn't really have to affect the other.
Contract in.
Yeah, and one doesn't really have to affect the other, but Senate wants to make sure they understand it and that we don't abuse it, and I think that is fair.
Fair enough. And then you talk about, I didn't understand where you come from this cost of class thing.
Okay, so right now, and Jennifer, how much are we going to charge UPHS for that class?
The MOU just came today. It's somewhere around $4,000. We can charge the cost of the instructor plus any overhead.
Prorated share of custodial utilities, there's a formula for that. And what she's wanting to make sure, John, is that that's an accurate formula. Because it could look pretty easy if I was an outside agency.
Well, that's not what you said. You talked about something missing with uniform, too.
Because for reassigned time that is commonly known as release time, we have a different formula for what that costs. And so how many formulas are we going to have for the real cost of instruction? That's my question.
The difference is in an adjunct instructor, which all of those classes would be taught by adjunct instructors versus a full-time faculty member on an overload or a full-time faculty member.
Well, I don't feel get together and figure out how to make it work.
Don't worry, we will.
What class are you talking about?
There's, we have five, well, we have, okay, the classes that we're talking about this semester, there's two with the Visalia Technical Educational High School. We have two with them. We have three at Corcoran. We had to cancel the classes at Corcoran because of our budget situation. Almost all of our classes at high schools have been cut. And Corcoran asked if we could pay for it for the spring, could you continue to teach those classes for the spring?
If they could pay for it.
If they could pay for it. If Corcoran could pay for it, could we continue to teach them? And Superintendent Carasosa and their Superintendent Rich Merlo have been in discussions about how we can continue to work with Corcoran, but we agreed to do that for the spring while we're working out the agreements long-term with them. The third one was UPHS. They asked the same thing because they, actually I offered it to them because they couldn't get any of their students because of the enrollment into classes. And they said, well, this is what we're doing with corporate, this is what we're doing with VTech, and so they've asked, and actually with them, the benefit we have with the UPHS classes, they said, okay, if our students don't fill it, we'll open it to other COS students. So we just opened that class on Monday. We had 11 UPHS students, and we had 14 general COS students who wouldn't have had an English class if UPHS hadn't paid for that class. Now, we can't count apportionment, so there's an easy fix in MIS system that we put an O in, and then the apportionment is not counted.
I just hope you're supportive of cooperative things, because corporate
I think if we offer them at Corcoran, we have to offer them to every high school that comes to ask
they'll pay
us.
for it, no problem.
Well, that's what I want to make sure is legal, because this is almost similar to what happened at Santa Monica, where they were asking the student to pay for it. And that,
I think you're wise to warn us, but I also detect that you don't like the law.
you know, I'm trying to work within the system right now. But I feel like I need expertise from an outside agency. So we'll work together and see what we can do.
So you have to supply the teachers, is that what you're saying?
Yes. It goes by seniority by the contract. And we have, in fact, the class at UPHS was an adjunct faculty member who did not have a class this semester. So by UPHS paying for it, we also gave someone a job. So,
They supply the teachers, but it's voluntary. They come forward in seniority order. It's just another option we make available to staff and students.
But there's another issue here too, is if we can't help Corcoran out, why wouldn't we then just release them so they can go to West Hills?
We can help them.
Actually, the department named you was Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
She heard me. She gave me a dirty look.
No, I didn't.
I'm gonna stay out of that one. Thank you, Michelle.
Yes.
Costa, did Ed send his report, is that right?
He did. He wasn't able to be here tonight because he has a night class, I guess, this semester. But he did want to just wish us all a happy new year, welcome back, and he's hopeful that we can work together this spring. And those were his comments.
That's the best report Ed's ever given.
We'll let him know. Yes.
Steve, is your report about the same? You can just stay there if it's that short.
Well, it's short, don't grow on too much. Actually, two things. First thing and the foremost is I stand here as a proud representative of the classified staff here at COS. Today was a historic day for COS. We opened 3 campuses, and I just want to pay my thank you and kudos to the classified staff, who we all know the last 5 years, from state cuts, budget cuts, we're working shorter staff than we've ever been. And yet, I heard from my campuses, and it did go fairly well. Tulare was just, it was very, very short staff, a lot of students, but it did go well. And I just want to thank my fellow classified staff for working extremely hard without having the backup we used to have. And so that's my first. The second is, at December's meeting, the classified unit did re-elect the current exec board for another 2 years, so you are stuck with me for another 2 years.
Thank you, Steve. And I believe Costa has no report, is that correct?
Right, on behalf of Don Nickel, he emailed us that he wasn't able to be here tonight, so we'll have a report next time.
Okay. General obligation bonds, I believe this is just an announcement of our next scheduled meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
For Measure I, March 5th, and for Measure J on February 25th. Information items, administrative procedures. Okay.
Good evening. I have a couple of administrative procedures and board policy for your review this evening. The first one is 5130, financial aid services. And this is a revision to this policy that will comply with the U.S. Department of Education regulations on integrity of federal student financial aid programs. And it addresses concerns regarding misrepresentation of services and programs to students. With all of these, we're taking the opportunity to clean up some language, and so you see the strike-throughs in your copies. And on page 2,
probably about 3/4 of the way down, really stressing the importance for students to understand the regulations and what they must do to receive financial aid. And so we begin outlining very clearly what is required. On page 3, that in addition to meeting the income eligibility requirements, you're also seeing some other requirements as well, like taking the placement test, be enrolled in an eligible program for completing an associate degree. You need to have a minimum of 16 units. All students must have a student education plan on record. So again, you're really seeing a lot of specificity that's being required to be eligible for financial aid. On page 4, in that bold section, middle section there, you see actually the misrepresentation clause. Again, we don't want to deceive or confuse our students, but want to have everything very, very clear on the expectations.
Do they have to, in order to obtain their financial aid, how long do they have to be in that class? They have to complete the class?
Students have to maintain a 2.0 GPA, and they must show that they are progressing satisfactorily.
So they have to stay enrolled?
Basically, yeah.
Have any of these things created more work on our behalf here at the college?
Yes,
I'm sure,
because
yes.
we're having to monitor so many more things.
The state's telling you, come back, but we want you to do more.
Yeah, but again, everything is pushing towards completion to get students through success versus access. I mean, to get them through the pipeline. There's these certain points along the way, and again, as I said, you need to do an orientation, and you need to do an assessment, you need to have a student ed plan on file.
So the college is responsible for some of these requirements in terms of saying whether or not the students did them. So in terms of reporting, the college is an instrumental part when it comes to placement tests.
And we do have we're starting to look more and more at technology and how that can help us. The second one that you have is 5515, off-campus student organizations. This policy is legally required, even if the district doesn't officially recognize student organizations off campus, and we currently do not have any. But it discusses how we work with our local law enforcement to monitor and access criminal activity.
Anybody have any questions of Francis on either one of those?
Quick comment. Thank you very much for preparing this in a fashion it's easy for people like me to understand what you're doing.
Yeah,
Whether it's highlighted, crossed out.
We heard you loud and clear, asking us to include the strike-throughs and then bold and underline what's new.
And it helps us too, because some of these really take on a life of their own, and they go back several different times. So really, we've also benefited as well.
So these are for information only tonight in the first reading. You'll see these a second time next board meeting for your action and approval, and then we'll implement.
The next one that I have is Board Policy 3900, which is speech time, place, and manner. And a couple of changes that we made here. It was formerly in the 5,000 category, which is student services. We are now moving that out to Chapter 3, which is general institution. And this particular policy now includes employees and members of the public, so it's not just limited to students. We have various organizations from the community that want to come onto the campus, and so this really talks about having a designated forum for them. At the next board meeting, I will be bringing to you the administrative procedure that will talk very specifically about those designated areas at all of our campuses that have been designated for free speech.
I think that one can get a little tricky.
It can get a little tricky, you're right.
Okay, any questions with Francis on Board Policy 3900? Okay. Moving on to the consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. An item may be removed from the consent calendar if the respective board member or any person in the audience considered as a separate agenda item.
I'd like number 9 removed. I'd like to get clarification as to what she was talking about, what Michelle was talking about earlier.
Sure.
So we will remove that and vote on it separate, or we want to talk about it and include it? What's the best way to do that?
Either way.
Yeah, we can talk about it and then include it. Yeah.
Okay, so can we just have clarification on item 9 then?
Right. I think what Michelle is referring to is when we first were in receipt of the Southern California Edison donation. You'll recall earlier this year, we brought you the big ceremonial check from their donation, and they make that donation each year to the foundation, and then we work together with the foundation to determine appropriate applications for those resources. They've typically been supportive of scholarships and student projects. I think in different years they've supported their funding going toward career technical education, the things that kind of tie to the core mission of Southern California Edison. One of the things we've been sharing with all of our prospective donors this fall, especially in light of the difficult economic times we've been under, is that very similar to when we did the fundraising for the Tulare ceremony at the center, the dinner that was out there, we're asking donors to consider making donations to the general fund to support the kinds of operations that we were starting to lose through the state budget cuts. So when Steve Renton, for example, sat down with Bill Delane from Southern California Edison, and he said, hey, this year, in addition to your scholarships, would Southern California Edison be supportive if some of your funding went to the district's general fund so that we could expand the offerings for some classes that were otherwise starting to shrink, especially now that we're having to open another campus. Bill took that to the powers that be at Southern California Edison. They were supportive of that. So the first mechanism we used, the first tool we used to put that together was to bring the donation forward so that the board could accept that from Southern California Edison as sponsorship for classes. Once that got into the pipeline and we realized that that was going to have some of the tracking complications that Michelle pointed out to us, we didn't have a way per se of taking a general education class and tracking which students were in that one versus another one, or would a whole class fill up, so that we could or couldn't collect apportionment on something that was sponsored. We basically went back to Southern California Edison and said, look, if this can be a donation that comes from the College of the Sequoias Foundation to our district general fund, then it goes into our general fund for the purpose of enhancing our opportunity to continue to add classes. And so they were comfortable with that. So tonight you receive it as a donation from the foundation into the general fund. Once it's in our general fund, we can run business as usual. But what Southern California Edison wanted to feel good about is that their donation might help us do 3 or 4 more classes than we would otherwise have been able to do. And that's what they can go back to their company and say, our donation expanded the capacity for COS to do that. But we donated it to their general fund, and they used that money to operate business as usual.
And Michelle, you didn't have a problem with the way that was done?
I think the problem is going to be in the tracking later on. But as long as it doesn't look like double dipping, then yeah.
So if it goes straight into the general fund, you could say it paid out.
Right.
Okay, I see your point.
It doesn't, it's different. It's different than Corcoran High School, for example, saying, if you offer a class at Corcoran and we pay you $4,500, that class is going to be available at Corcoran. This is money going into the general fund, and because of that, our general fund has more capacity.
Just a clarification. Do I understand properly that the funds from SoCal Edison first had to go to the foundation or to the general fund?
They did in this case.
But that's not required.
Correct.
Point of information, there's a typo in there. It's actually Mary Beth Figuera that gave the donation, not Mary Beth Hire.
And I have a silly correction in the minutes, but on the previous meeting, it shows Greg closing the meeting. I happen to get mixed up.
See, we got to go through and
Pretty minor.
catch all those automatics.
I think Greg was wishing.
So that's the response or the clarification on that item. So you could, if there aren't any other questions, you could take up the consent calendar now with that explanation.
With that explanation, okay. And then I just had one quick question also before we move to the motion on payment of bills. The farm expenses weren't on there, and I typically like to look at those. It's the only way we kind of are able to receive the farm as board members. And I don't know why those were left out, but you know.
Was there a reason why they were left out this year?
We'll have to check on that.
Okay, so if you could just forward them to me this month, I'm not going to ask that item be removed, but, yeah, or I'll just add them to next month, yeah. But I know there had to be some. If there were none, that'd be great.
We're running power at the Linwood Farm until the end of this month, so there'll still be a few things out there.
Yeah. And I guess it's just kind of a good way to.
And did you have one more question, Lori? We were talking earlier about. Okay.
I move we accept the consent calendar. Second.
All those in second, any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, consent calendar.
Lori, I hate to do this, but we have a 3-minute recess.
Yes. 3-minute recess. 6:40. Don't go too far.
I'm coming back. I pumpkins moved, so I have to climb over everyone.
Bump everybody in the head with it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Or just say, here's a letter from somebody, I want to submit it for you to read.
There's a few ways we can turn that, because I get the feeling now that things going on.
So how's it going, man? My feet hurt.
Your feet hurt?
My feet hurt. That's how it's going.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
The fact that that's my most pressing concern is a good thing, though, I think.
You can't sit down while the camera's running?
I could, but it makes me feel more important to stand up.
We move it around.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I didn't know how much panning he's done.
Yeah, and so what you can say is, you can either have done this before, you also either. Listen to that, however you send your letters, you put it in 15 minutes, take everything else you give us. But they're not listening to saying,
Oh, would have been out of here.
Oh, same here.
well, they got you tonight.
Dr. Manhauer.
Huh? How you doing, Steve?
I do well.
Could you check with this company and find out what the earwax?
Sure, yeah. Okay, yeah. I asked you last time if you want me to do that, and you said, well,
Are you talking around the phone cover or the whole earbud?
no, the earbud there. Hey, let's get some.
I think the earbuds were like $50 to $100 as I
They're
remember.
like a little pack, yeah.
Right.
They're a pack.
Because they sell the phone covers, because theoretically after somebody uses it, you get to peel it off and put it in the
We're talking about the whole unit. So.
Yeah. Oh, the tray.
The whole transmitter, yeah.
No, just the
bud.
Just the bud, the plug.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I don't want the hook.
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I tried it yesterday at church, and it was fine, but the ones I had were stereo, and they're, you gotta get them just right.
Yeah.
And I know, but it worked very well.
Okay. Well, actually, they should be able to set up your system so it sends a mono signal to both of the stereo ports, so it doesn't matter how it's plugged.
Oh, it is a little happy.
Yeah.
It may have,
Yeah, those 8-inch stereo plugs.
Sure, I'll get some.
Yeah, we got nothing better.
To fix that as well, so I'll get them for you.
Good, I appreciate that.
Sure.
So we I think
I'm ready to start here.
Oh, yeah, I love that paper.
Hey, what's up? I'm in a meeting.
It's hard to reconvene. We lose half our audience when we reconvene.
Well, this shouldn't take more than 45 minutes.
Oh, bad.
Slow down, Rich. John, did somebody in the audience ask you to do that? Because we lost half of them. They heard it was the time to leave when you did that. Take a 3-minute break. Okay, Brent, you're up.
Thank you, President Cardozo. You recall that back in December, we provided the first reading of our fiscal solvency plan with a promise we would come back and give a second reading at this meeting. What I plan to do, rather than read all 25 screens and go through it in the detail that we did in December, is to sort of hit the highlights and then spend the majority of our time here answering any questions, if I may. One thing, as President Carasosa alluded to earlier, is that we just saw the governor's proposed budget on Friday, went through a webinar today, and it does appear that the revenue projections won't be quite as straightforward and stable, if you will, flat as was originally told to us. So this will be a document that we revisit and bring back to the board on at least at every other meeting, maybe every meeting basis, just to tell you kind of what's changing with the budget process. So you'll recall that the first thing we cleared up was just Prop 30 passing to solve all of our budget challenges. No. What it did was avoid another $2.7 million in budget cuts, but it did very little to cut into the $4.1 million that we lost last year alone. We went through budget projections. We went through what would happen in a scenario where we did nothing. And we get to this screen right here. And it's a little bit tough to read, but you'll see that we've shown the effect that doing nothing had on one-time reserves. Our OPEB would dwindle down to about $750,000. The Visalia bond money would be gone by the end of the 15-16 year, and our general fund reserves would be down $1.5 million under what were required by the state to keep, and that's 5% of our general fund. So not a good place to be in just 3 years. That gave us the premise to present the multi-year fiscal solvency plan, which essentially relies on a combination of one-time resources, budget reductions, as well as the due process and negotiations to achieve fiscal solvency. In this scenario, we are able to add back summer school. We are also able to fund step and column. This proposes across the board 2.5% salary cut to all employee groups, as well as some careful day-to-day reductions in expenses. So the net effect, I'll just skip to a page that we just saw. This is, instead of what happens if we do nothing, this is preserving fiscal solvency, but it's really the same screen with different numbers. And you'll see the OPEB is preserved through the 15-16 year at that $4.8 million number. Again, 3 years from now, we still have several $100,000 left in our Visalia bond account. And then we preserved our general fund reserve as well. So in terms of what this plan does, it maintains fiscal integrity, significantly reduces our structural deficit, allows us to serve 3% more FTS than being funded by the state, restores summer school, maintains step and column, allows time for us to plan and implement instructional and student service programs for multiple years. It brings our employee salary and benefit expenditures from about 91% down to 85% of our 2013-14 projected revenue. Again, it relies on the due process of negotiations, and attrition, retirement, layoff to bring expenditures in line with revenue, and develops a reasonable scenario for us to deal with this economic downturn. So that's what was presented in December, and feel free, I can go back to any of these screens and elaborate on them, but I just want to spend the bulk of our time with questions.
Rick, I guess my concern, and I've said this before, so I don't want to keep it get worse, but I guess my concern is after a year or two, as the Visalia bond, when we see what's left there and that, the amount that we need out of there beginning in that third year, and that's when it gets foggy, and I know it's hard to predict out more than 2 years, but my concern is, we know what we were cutting the last 2 years, and if that were to happen again, our reserve would never come us not even close to what we've been cut just in the last 2 years. Our reserve just isn't enough. And so I guess my question, I think, to all of you, I guess especially to you, Grant, is our reserve enough to take us through another downturn like we've had the next few years without a Visalia bond in place? And I know we don't have that answer today, but I think we need to seriously at least have, plan, if scenario 1 happens, what's plan A, B, C, and at least know what those are in our mind going into the next 3 to 5 years, because that is in 3 years, which we know comes really quick.
And it's a great question. First of all, having listened to the governor's proposed budget, he has proposed more revenue coming into the system. If his proposed budget were enacted today, we would not have this structural deficit right here. And so the $3 million that we're currently showing in Measure A, Measure I, as well as the $4.8 million in the OPEB account, as well as our general fund reserve, would all be intact, and we have a balanced budget. If in fact nothing happens with this proposed budget, and next year and the year after and the year after are just like this year, which admittedly last year and this year are the worst ever in our history. When I say our, I mean the history of our community college system, not just COS. If none of his proposals come to pass and we were left to deal with this year as a model for the next several, you can see that we do a pretty doggone good job of staying solvent through the 15-16 year. And at the end of that 3.5 year period, we would still have all of our OPEB in place to deal with what you're talking about. We'd also have about another $500,000 of Measure I, as well as all of our reserve, as well as the local $500,000 we keep for retiree health benefits. So even if no new revenue comes into the system as he is proposing, none of that comes to pass, by following this fiscal solvency plan and some of the budget cuts we're talking about and the employee concessions that we're talking about, we can make it for another 3.5 years and still be looking pretty good if the economic downturn would continue. Does that answer your question, Phil?
No, that answers my question, and I may be the only board member that feels this way, but I guess I would like to not consider OPEB as a reserve. I'd like to look at it, it's there for, not for general fund expenses ever really. And I'd like the goal to be not to, rely on that even 3-4 years down the road.
Thank you, and I think we heard that loud and clear, and I think that's, our FSP reflects that would be touched in very dire circumstances. Again, Measure I is doing what it was intended to do, maybe a little bit more, but again, if we still have $500,000 left at the end of the 15-16 year, then it will have gone on for 8 years, which is much more than anybody expected it to, and we've been able to do some wonderful things with it, as well as pay for some technology through these difficult times.
The economic downturn helped us with that bond money, because we bought all these houses a whole lot cheaper than what we had budgeted in that bond to do it. So it helped us in that regard.
Well, just a comment I would have, Brent and President Cardoza. Clearly, I think the question you posed regarding our general fund reserves certainly the funds there certainly would be enough to carry us through another economic downturn like we've seen. Hopefully, that won't happen, but it's just probably just a matter of when. But having said that, I also agree that the OPEB fund, from an actuarial standpoint, should probably have a lot more money in there than it does.
We're going to have a study done this spring. And you recall that 2 years ago, the actuarial said we should have $11 million put away. And even that $11 million assumed some fairly high rates of return that we probably couldn't achieve. So we'll be looking with interest this spring at our new actuarial studies to see. But in terms of the general fund reserve, I think you bring up a great point. And I think it's sort of a misnomer that the state requires us to keep 5% of our general fund expenditures as a reserve, as if that would suffice through a major economic downturn like this. And I think we've seen that without a Measure I or something else to supplement it, it's not. And that's why you see some districts with 15 or 20%, and some people scoff at that being way too much. But I guarantee you that the folks at State Center Community College District are sitting a lot more comfortably than we are, knowing that they have 25 or 30% in reserve in case this economic downturn continues even longer.
That's my insinuation.
Yeah, it would behoove us to be in a situation where we wouldn't have to focus on one-time source of monies to balance the budget any one year. It's good that we were able to have that, because I'm not sure what we would, I guess, further cut classes. And so, and on that note, if things that we hope come to pass, what I'd like to see us focus on, Brent, would be, obviously you mentioned summer school, and that would be great if we were able to put that back on the table. I'm focusing on the things that are student related and what would serve the purpose that we're here to provide restore classes that have been cut, including summer school, and be able to do some of those things that we talked about here today.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we recognize that summer school is important to the board. I know first thing President Carrizosa asked me this summer was what can we do to get summer school back in play, because anybody that lives in our service area, you hear that a lot. We've really negatively impacted a lot of students, not only our regular school year students, but also local students that come home from the university in the summer and want to take one class to get ahead on their studies. So this does that, assuming that this FSP is approved tonight. In February, we will bring back a plan for summer school. We'll start sharing that in our participatory governance structure and bring that back at the next board meeting for you to review a plan for restoring.
Would it be able to bring that back this summer?
Yes.
It'll be a small version, Board Member Sherman, but we need to start. And we've got some ideas for how a modified model can be brought back this summer with the limited resources we have.
Sure.
So you're either have or you're going to recommend that the board adopt the fiscal solvency plan. And even though I don't see anybody here that's allowed to speak up, I suspect there are folks that think that probably this isn't necessary anymore because of the fact that Prop 30 passed, and also because the governor's budget is looking pretty good. But I think we should go forward with it. When you guys were all talking, I wrote down some notes that are not very well ordered, but when the governor's budget, when the state sends more money to us, we don't know whether it's going to be in the form of COLA or growth. We don't know if it'll be this year, next year, or whatever. I'd hate to see us be in a situation where we didn't have the money to fund the FTS to get the money for growth. We need reserves for that. Also, I read the front page of the LA Times this morning. There's the article about the state's huge unfunded liability for employee retirement and health benefits. And they were tabbing a number at about $3 billion a year shortfall. There was discussion in an article about whether the state would just pony up or whether they instead would send a bill to the school districts. Well, I don't know what they'll do, whether they'll even discuss it this year or not, but that's something that we need to worry about that could happen. If it did, it could completely wipe out the $2.7 billion that he's got. I also worry about whether the definition of what a medium college is moves around on us. And if we think we can meet it based on what we know, what happens if they set it 500 higher than that? Do we want to make sure we have the money to go after that, get that $1 million bucks? Also, there's a lawsuit against us that has to do with whether or not the district really could do the cap or not. I guess it's possible we could lose, and if that's the case, we'll need significant money in the general fund to pay for that. Also, just how rosy is the governor's budget? Some of the pundits that I listened to indicate that it's a pretty honest presentation. But look at his track history and previous governor track history. They've been terrible. The amount of money we actually spend has always been way more than the governor's budget, particularly after the legislature took a crack at it. Do we ever want to fix the Child Development Center, or are we going to just abandon that program? We talked about summer school a bit, I'll repeat myself. We heard a lot about Pointe tonight. Will that come back, and if so, maybe greater than what we should have? I don't know. A few months ago, we talked about failure of the college to do what it needed to do to make the VET program accredited. Also, some people think that we ought to have some FTS restoration around here to deal with the 2,000 or 3,000 students that can't even get in. And also, don't forget, it's now shaping up where the governor is fiscally far more conservative than Mr. Perez or Mr. Steinberg, the two leaders of the Assembly and the Senate. They hold a 2/3 majority. Wouldn't it be ironic if the only people that voted for Governor Brown's budget were the Republicans? And if that was the case, they'd lose because the Democrats have 2/3 majority. So while we may, the future may be rosy in fact, and we may not have to ever implement this, we just might have to. And it's a lot easier to plan for it today and then not need to do it than it is to not plan for it today and then wish the hell we had it. So I, for one, would encourage my fellow board members to endorse your proposed plan and make that a policy of the district.
I would so move that we adopt the
That sounded like a motion, but
2012. If that wasn't a motion, then I would make the motion to, was that a motion or was that a?
Sure.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt the 2012-2013 fiscal solvency plan. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item of discussion or action is curriculum. Thank you, Brent. Mr. Calvin, I'm going to get to my Mr. and Mrs. here. I just can't do it though. As soon as you call on by your first name, it's going to be really hard on to try. Dr. Lucerne, I'm going to call you down. I'm going to try.
Thank you, President Cardoza. I see everybody's getting Cardoza thing.
Lori is good for me, but okay. Curriculum, and there's lots of curriculum.
Yeah, and you're going to see a lot of curriculum in February and March as well, because we're trying to get everything through by March to make it to fall. It has to be approved by the board in March for fall. There's 3 things that we're focusing on right now. One is 5-year reviews, which is every course is up for a 5-year review. The second one is called standalone courses, and the third one is repeatability. And let me start with the third one, repeatability. We've talked about that before. Starting in the fall, we are no longer able to offer repeatable courses. And so what you see in this curriculum report and the next 2 is we're trying to delete all of the repeatable courses out of the catalog, out of our course schedule, out of everything for fall, at the same time that we're rewriting the new courses that will take their place. The second one I mentioned, standalone courses, that's a big move from the Chancellor's office over the past couple of years. And standalone course is a course that is not connected to any degree, certificate, or program. So there's a number of courses that all community colleges have that are just a course that we offer. And they ask us, we have to go through special training to understand if those courses are legal or not. And we have to, what I've asked all of the division chairs to do and the deans is to give me a report on why we continue to offer those courses if they don't lead to a degree, certificate, or a program. And so what you see is also a result of people cleaning up courses that we shouldn't have been offered anymore, shouldn't be offered. An example of a standalone course that is a viable course would be like our English 360 course. It's not, you don't get a degree for it, you don't transfer or anything, but it's a prerequisite to get into the next level of English. Okay, so what you see on the first 5 courses is our Aero program. That's our helicopter program, and they're basically changing, they're adding a distance ed addendum because we offer some of those courses in Paso Robles when it's foggy. So we added DE, and this is an update on some of their co-requisites as well. So those are the first 5. Then you have 5-year review for the AJ course. All of the AJ courses are under 5-year review. The architectural courses, as you can see, you see all the way in the far column to the right, 5-year review, and under that repeatability. So they're reviewing it and deleting repeatability for all of the architecture courses. The same with the art course. The comm courses on the 3rd page, those are for 5-year review. The computer course is for 5-year review. The CT course is for a description change for that course. The drafting course is for a reconfiguration of the lecture lab. The engineering courses are engineering 5-year review, graphic design 5-year review, history needed to update some things for transferability. The manufacturing is lecture lab reconfiguration. Let's see. Math is a change in units. PEAC is one of the new PE programs that we're going to offer here. We're changing some PE courses to what's the PE course, and it's in for repeatability, to get rid of the repeatability. Spanish 1 is adding, all of the Spanish courses are 5-year review and adding a distance education addendum. And I talked to Michelle and she said, yes, they can teach it via distance ed. So I checked with her on that one. Then the new courses are next. So these are new courses like the truck driving theory. You can see the kinesiology is for the transfer model curriculum. It's a new course required for us to have that transfer model curriculum required to get to the CSU. The manufacturings are, those are all new based on new OSHA requirements. So they've updated that for an OSHA requirement for the certificate. And then the next group is deletions. Okay, and okay, yeah, right? Okay, and then on the next page, when it starts with manufacturing, then you see all the auto classes. All of those are what we were calling standalone courses. So all of those auto courses were not connected to a degree, certificate, or a program. They were just additional courses that we offered. And some of them, like the Auto 202, hasn't been offered since 2004. One of them, 2010, for the Auto 254. The ones on the second page haven't been offered since 2007 or 2009. The auto program has all of its degrees and certificates have been changed to 100 level courses, which means that they're transferable. It's a higher level of a course. And so all of theirs have been reclassified into 100 level courses. And I did want to point out that they had the most degrees and certificates of any other program in the IT department this year was the auto program. On the next page, after you get through the auto courses, business, again, a lot of these, what you're seeing is they're deleting because it's they're standalone. So the business was not connected to the certificate anymore. This medical terminology moved to nursing division. And then like the child course, no enrollment in the class for 10 years. And then the rest you can see are the next 3 courses no longer taught. So we're trying to clean it up and get some of the courses off our records that aren't being offered anymore. Some human services have been changed to 100 level courses. The Math 235, and I know you might think, why would we be deleting a math class? The Math 235 was for math majors. We have an identical course called Math 230. And we designed the Math 235 for math majors. But the math majors did not enroll in this class, so we have really low enrollment in it because they could get the identical course in Math 230 with less stringent requirements. So they all signed up for the Math 230 and we haven't been able to fill the 235. It didn't work as expected. The Math 365, similar story. We added, it was an additional support class, so we have a Math 360 that meets the same requirements. 365 was an extra couple of hours in the lab, but students figured out if we don't have to spend the extra couple of hours in the lab, we might as well take the 360 for the same purpose. So we're deleting that course. The ones on the next page are the same thing. The first two are for course repeatability, and the last two are for standalone courses that were no longer being offered. Any questions?
Good.
Motion approved?
Questions?
Questions?
You answered all my questions but one. On drafting 113, it appears to be a hand drafting course. In the computer era, why do you do that?
I'll come back. Coming back to that one on your question, I talked to the instructor, and when he let me know that not all firms are doing 100% computer-assisted drafting, so he feels that students need to know both the hand drawing of the draft and the computer. And he also has found that having the students learn to do the drafting, the technical drafting by hand first enhances their computer capabilities when learning CAD.
You say that some firms still do hand, you talk about architects, I assume?
He says, yeah, not all the architectural firms are 100% computer assisted. Really? So some of them are still doing some hand drawing. Yeah. So he's also found stronger success with the students doing the hand drawing first, and then they learn to do it on the computer.
Okay. I move we approve. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Motion passes. It's 9 non-resident tuition fee. Mr. Campbell.
You'll recall that by February 1st of each year, the state requires us to approve our non-resident tuition fee for the following year. And we have two options for doing that. Either we can charge the actual cost of instruction, which for us this year we've calculated at $189 per semester unit, or we can use the statewide average, which for this year is $190 per semester unit. We've elected to go with the $190 per semester unit. And this applies to all foreign international students as well as out-of-state students. In addition, they're also required to pay the state and local fees, $46 per semester unit, plus the individual local fees that we have here. So it gets up to about $240 per unit. Now, over the last 3 years, we've tacked on a capital outlay fee, which started at about $30 per semester unit. It climbed this year to $66 per semester unit. Next year, by virtue of just all the construction money that's poured from the state into our Tulare project, this year, we're going forward to next year, we're doing $78 per semester unit, and that's on top of the $190 and the $46. For that reason, we're recommending not to charge the capital outlay fee this year and just leave it at the $190 plus the state and local fees, and then revisit the issue of capital outlay fees on an annual basis. We did look to see if we could maybe reduce and just pay charge a portion of the actual capital outlay fees, and that is not acceptable or allowed by statute. It has to be either the entire amount or nothing. And so for this year, we're recommending just to not charge a capital outlay expense. Traditionally, we have not done it. We did it for the last 3 years. Again, it started at 30, went to 40, this year it's 66, and we just felt like charging $78 on top of the 190 and on top of the 46 creates quite a hardship for a number of our students. And when you consider the fact that 190 alone, forgetting the 46, but 190 alone is $40 per unit more than what the state reimburses us for our local students, we felt like 190 plus the 46 is adequate to get us even with what the state would pay us ordinarily, as well as get ahead on some of those capital outlay fees.
How many non-residents do we have?
Last year we had 56. I think the numbers tick back up. Generally we have around 100. Last year just it may have been as a result of this larger capital outlay fee. It reduced last year to 56. This year it's back up somewhere close to 100.
Are they mostly out-of-state students?
Yeah, we normally have 10 to 20 international students, and then 60 to 80 out-of-state students.
Are most of those athletes or not necessarily?
Maybe half of those. Maybe half of those.
Brendan, you're talking with Larry Dieter today, and you were talking about the helicopter program, and I was surprised at the size of the program, but he also mentioned that he had a lot of out-of-state students that came to be involved in the program. Are they part of this count?
They would be part of that count. He'll have 8 to 12 at any one time in that program. And their fees, it's a little bit different structure, so it's even more than what we're talking about here, primarily funded by their GI Bill.
Okay, any further discussion? Motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Passes. And Calvin? Change orders. I wonder why change orders are always last.
Trying to wait you out. Just
They're
not
never
working.
first.
Just not working. I need time to warm up. We're getting close. We're getting close on the change orders. I think we have, I'm already working on February. I think we're done in February and March with both phases. So the good news is you won't see too much in for a while. This first round of change orders is for the Tulare Phase 1 state portion. It's for 4 contractors, the aluminum storefront, electrical, HVAC, and the steel stud drywall and plaster portions of the project. It's got its fair share of errors, omissions, and enhancements within here, the 3 categories that we try to put each change order into. You've seen the buildings. We're in them. We're working on warranty work and punch list items. There's still a handful left. The project had $2.34 million for change orders unforeseen circumstances. When this was written, December 10th, it was $218,000 remaining. So it is recommended the Board of Trustees approve the change orders for the Tulare Phase 1 project for the aluminum storefront, electrical, HVAC, and steel studs, drywall, and plaster portion.
So moved.
Questions?
Okay.
It appears to me that there's an awful lot of electrical changes here, most of which say that they weren't originally shown on the plan and such, so it's probably pretty clear the contractor has this one coming, but with this many omissions, does that rise to the level of somebody should have thought that before? And do you think this is normal?
On every omission, I think we should have thought of it before.
Well, but perfection, if possible.
Right. I think it's a little excessive here. However, I don't feel it's the design firm. And I'll tell you why, but I've also will tell you the scrutiny we put these through. The same firm, in this case, electrical consultant Rosing of Visalia, they did the Phase 3 project and the Phase 1 project. We are not having these issues on Phase 3. This firm, this contractor, we are having issues with. This contractor has a very good legal staff that picks apart every single thing we do. As a matter of fact, we're entering into some potential legal issues with this firm.
So some of this is easier to, it's cheaper to just settle
yes.
this by.
Yes. In addition, though, let me tell you the process we go through, and you'll see this, and that's why you see it repetitive. I try to make it cans for ease for me and for you. When it's omitted from the documents. Each one of these, we go through a review and classify whether it's an error, an omission, or an enhancement. And that has funding behind it. And you'll see many of these that says that the architect was back charged. The architect, when they're back charged because they're responsible for the sub-consultants, they turn around and charge the sub-consultant for the error as well. In an error situation, the architect has to pay for the error, and the architect does not get their design fee for that money. In an omission, the architect doesn't have to pay for the omission, but they don't get their fee for the money either, so there's a partial penalty. The omissions, though, like the errors, what we do to ensure that they're cost effective, because I understand that frequently in a non-bid situation that the contractor can try to float his number up. We first send them to the consultant, in this case the electrical engineer for scrutiny. And if he feels it's an adequate amount for the change order, then we typically will push it through as proposed by the vendor. Frequently the sub-consultant thinks it's too much. So we pressure the contractor to try to lower his number, thinking it's excessive. Even though it's not a bid situation, we don't always just accept these. If they push back, a lot of times it goes to a second level of estimator, which the Classen Corporation has an estimator in-house and they review it. And there are still times when it comes back and we can't come to agreement. So what we do that's not shown here is we proceed on many of these on a time and material basis. So we actually monitor the contractor.
Forced contract.
It's not forced, it's just we agree that it's time and material. So yeah, forced labor, if you will. Because there's a prevailing wage amount in their bid, and there's a certain amount of profit. So all I would agree with you, they still get a little bit. It's much, much more scrutinized.
Well, I'm real pleased with your explanation. I'm satisfied with me.
So point of order, we do have a motion.
Yeah. Okay, so.
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of change orders to Tulare Center phase to the state, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Item 15, change orders to multiple contracts for Tulare Center phase 3 for the farm animal complex.
Phase 3, same thing, other than this is locally funded by Measure J. We have a few different contractors. The aluminum storefront, greenhouse, HVAC, masonry, paving, and steel stud portion. Same go through with the errors, omissions, and enhancements. They all go through that process. You'll see the accountability in here. I hope with those that are held accountable for the mistakes. This project had $1.119 million in contingency account, and as of August 27th, had roughly $2,000 remaining.
Do you feel confident that's going to get you through, Eric?
I actually feel that's a typo. That should be December 10th when I wrote this, so I think I've got a typo there. I update these every meeting right before, and I'm working on February's now. Yes, in phase 3, I absolutely feel that that's adequate to get through based on what's already in the pipeline. I've got February's on my desk. I've been told there's probably going to be some March. So we are going to make some savings on phase 3s. And we've done this by design. Many of these that could be squeezed over to phase 1, if you will, have been. You'll notice there's not a lot of phase 1 local change orders here. We've done everything we can to hit that gray area for phase 1, have the state to cover the cost.
I know that when I was out at the animal complex, I know there were some gates and things like that. Do those just come, are those minor, or is there anything major out there that they found that will come later?
Gates?
Oh, I don't know. When I hear, there's logistics things that need to be changed in terms of the way things open or close, or are those all little?
Oh yeah, there's nothing.
There's nothing major
In
that has
phase
to be
3,
changed.
in phase 3, there's nothing major other than, and you've heard this before, we're going to go through litigation with the steel contractor. We've withheld their $1 million, and our legal team is working on it, but money's in our hands. At worst, If we lost 100% of that, we would give them the money they were already due at the beginning of the contract plus our legal fees. So that money is not even included in here. This could go up if we recover anything from that lawsuit.
Eric, I noticed that there were, are you finished? I'm
No,
sorry.
go ahead. I was going to give the recommendation.
I noticed that there was some fencing, which I thought would be new fencing, around the perimeter of the heifer and cow corrals at the existing facility. Am I right in that, that is tall chain link type fencing around?
That's not in here.
No.
Okay.
I just noticed that when I was out there at the ribbon cutting, when I walked around the area. Am I right that that wasn't there prior to construction? And
Around the dairy?
Around the dairy?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Two things. The dairy, we're going to get into the division of the state architect debate here. The dairy is not Field Act compliant.
Right.
But it's because of its proximity and this project, when something's not Field Act compliant, they make you fence it. And so part of this project, we had to fence it to keep students from wandering into it.
Right.
And so that's why that fence came as part of phase one.
Was that part of this cost?
Phase three. Yes, sir, it was.
Phase three.
And all of the fencing was under one contract.
That's the local.
The local contract. Yes.
Any other questions on item 15? Can we get a motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That's the end. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned at 7:30.
Or, just to have him do with the three, or just something?
Let's hear about
I
it.
don't know. I haven't looked at that yet.
These are the annual board evaluation documents. Did you put a little explanation sheet in with it, or just the evaluation?
Are you ready? You got my jacket.
I didn't know it was I tried to see it. I thought it was like mailed to me.
We'll do is we'll send an email.